What's up, everybody? Welcome to Breakfast with the Boys. No, I'm just kidding. This is FYFFE, the podcast presented by Froggy Freeze Shaved Ice right here behind me. We are coming to you right now from the Fife ball fields. We're out here supporting the kids for a little bit, but we're here, Greg and I, to get us a little taste, a little special treat here, Greg.
Looking for some pina colada right now. Can't wait.
So you're going with your favorite.
I'm going with my favorite.
I'm gonna go with my favorite in a strawberry banana. And I brought a tag along with me here. She's enjoying the game, but got the wife here with me. What are you gonna have, babe?
I think I'm gonna have red velvet cake.
Red velvet cake. That's your go-to? Red velvet cake. All right. So, Greg, I'm gonna let you kind of take it. Froggy Freeze, you've known them a lot longer than I have, but they have been tremendous sponsors of FYFFE, the podcast. And I got to tell you what, they're going to be doing something this weekend called Meet the Machines over at the Fort Payne-Isbell Airfield there. But more than that, they've been at, I know they were at a VBS thing earlier in the week, a training thing over the weekend. And these guys are kind of all over the place, so I'll let you tell the folks about them.
They do a lot of community stuff around here, so again, great people. I've known this one over here in the corner, Carolyn, probably, 40 years, 35? The big one back here, I knew him when he was not even knee-high, so I've known him for quite a while, and then they'll do you right. So give them a call, get them out to your functions. They'll do pretty much anything you're looking for, and they'll take great, fantastic care of you.
256-717-7239. I got that memorized. 256-717-7239. 3 trailers. Retired school teachers that'll come out anywhere you are. They are serve safe, serve. I knew to get that mixed.
Serve safe.
Serve safe certified. Look at there. Look at what that is. Oh man. You
got that memorized because you're the professional.
Oh, I don't know about professional now. There's some that would disagree. Have you ordered yet, baby? Get up in here and order. Go ahead.
We need a red velvet.
Red velvet cake, a small.
But listen, 717-7239. They'll come out to any event. Like I said, we are out here. I'm going to put this up on the... Look, we're out here at the Little League ball fields at Fife, okay? They're not only here, Greg, they go everywhere. Church functions, family functions. I mean, they're all over the place. How's your shaved ice?
Don't think missing is the beach.
Folks, stay tuned because FYFFE comes your way next.
They'll loosen up that line. You won't see 11 players within 5 yards of that body.
I think I mentioned, a bludgeoning or something like that. That's what they came out and did.
7 state championships since 2014.
I tell you what, for those young men, there's no better feeling right now.
Hi, friends, and welcome back to another episode of FYFFE, the podcast, episode number 11, and we are steamrolling right along. And although we're cooling things down a bit, as you saw just a moment ago before the open, our friends over at Froggy Freeze bringing you this episode of FYFFE as they've done every week for the last 10 weeks or so. Greg, myself, and my wife, we had a wonderful time just getting to talk with the fine folks, Miss Johnson and the guys over there at Froggy Freeze. I had the strawberry banana. I didn't even technically have to go up to the window. They remembered me saying it. I did say it, but I didn't think they actually caught it. But they were listening to the podcast because I was actually doing a little promo video, Greg. We were trying to film a little promo thing for this specific podcast. And while we were filming, boom, there he goes. He sets it right out. That's the type of service. That's the type of quality. That's the type of people you get from the folks at Froggy Freeze, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're fantastic people. I didn't think about this during the little commercial, but I should have said, so Carolyn's like my sister, my real sister, except for one thing. I actually like her. So, you know.
Nah.
Oh, okay. that unsponsored ad, JJ, nearly just got spewed everywhere across my desk. 256-717-7239, the number for Froggy Freeze. Again, thank you to Miss Carolyn and the entire crew with 3 trailers to serve you folks. They are safe serve certified. I think I got it right that time.
Serve safe.
Serve safe. No, I didn't. Serve safe. I'll get it right. Look, just all you need to know is they are certified by the health department. They're all good, okay?
Yeah.
They'll get you covered with 35 flavors plus hot chocolate and everything. Listen, there was a young man that came up and wanted a thing of hot chocolate. And it was like 64 degrees. And it actually felt really good. Just a slight breeze. Just felt really great out there in spite of it being a cold morning to start here on Monday morning. This little kid came up. I say little kid. He was a young man, probably 11, 12 years old. Came up and he wanted a hot chocolate. I looked at him and said, "Man, you need to get you one of these. Be a man. Get you something cold on a nice cool afternoon." And he said, "I already had one." I said, "You did? Well, what flavor did you get?" And he went, "I got tiger's blood." I said, "Oh man, all right.
Hey,
You like that
easy,
tiger's blood,
buddy.
man." So he loved it. So he came back for more. Although he didn't get the tiger's blood, he got hot chocolate. But that's just a
Said
testament
his
to how
mouth
good
was
they are.
frozen.
That's right. He did. He did. That's just a testament, just a small testament of what they offer you with 35 flavors. Again, 256-717-7239. Get one of those 3 trailers out to wherever you need them, whether it's a family function, church function, whatever it is. Give them a call today. They'll be glad to take care of you. Find us on social media along with Froggy Freeze at the Facebook page, Red Devil Radio Show, on YouTube at Red Devil Radio Show. That @ symbol is important for both that and on Twitter as well, where you find us at Red Devils Fun 927. And then, of course, on Spotify, you can search either Five Focus the podcast or the Red Devil Radio Show. Here's what's upcoming with JJ and Greg and myself this evening. We're talking bulletin board material. A way too early top 10 got released, and we're going to talk about that coming up in just a moment and kind of give you this rundown of kind of what we expect maybe out of that top 10. Did they get it right? That sort of thing. Also, college football super leagues. We're going to get some opinions on this just a little bit, not too much, because again, the guy that came up with this idea, he's not with us again, but we can't keep dragging it out, man. Got to get with us, JB. And then something that's not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but is in Greg's, is the Caesar Sportsbook 2025 championship odds have been released for every team that is eligible to play in the college football playoff. I was given this by my boss at work, made a copy of it, sent it to the guys in an email, and I kind of want to see their takes, because some of these odds kind of caught me off guard a little bit. We're also going to talk Where Was Greg, the T-shirt segment, and what's upcoming at 5. And we may even get into a little bit of NFL draft, because I forgot that that's coming up this week, and I bet some of you did too. So let's get into it with that all being said. Let's get into the bulletin board material, the way too early top 10 from our friends over at Hall Tech Sports. Now, I want to preface this, gentlemen, by saying everybody's entitled to their opinions, okay? We put ours out there. That's exactly what we're doing on this podcast. Everybody's entitled to their opinions. We can still feel like they got it right or wrong. They probably feel the same way about some things that we've said in the past if they pay any attention. Let's get started. Hall Tech Sports on social media. I don't care to give them a shout out. They're at Hall Tech Sports 1 on Twitter. They have been putting out their way too early top 10 the last few days. The 3A edition came out on Saturday. I'm going to go in reverse order here, and you tell me what you guys think. Coming in at number 10, the Piedmont Bulldogs. At number 9, the Tigers of B.B. Comer. At number 8, the Panthers of Mars Hill. Houston Academy, the Raiders check in at number 7. The Wildcats of Trinity come into play at number 6. To get started into the top 5, Gordo comes in at number 5. Fife ringing in at 4. Sylvania, the Rams checking in at 3. Thomasville, the Tigers at 2. And anybody want to take a wild guess at who's number 1?
It's the Bulldogs from Geraldine.
That's exactly right. The Geraldine Bulldogs are number 1 in this Hall Tech Sports way too early top 10. I want to know your guys' opinions on this. Of course, like what we did before, we'll start sort of that bottom 5 there, 6 through 10. The 3 that's going to strike me, you tell me your opinion on it. Greg, we'll start with you. Mars Hill, B.B. Comer, and Piedmont, 8, 9, and 10 in that order. Did they get it right being where they are? Did they get it in the right order, or what here?
Well, I mean, I've got to wonder again, and I don't know who all left, but I know that B.B. Comer lost, most of their offense and a whole lot of their defense with one young gentleman that signed at Memphis.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you got to wonder that is like, are they going to have somebody to pick up the slack from him? And boy, that was a whole lot of slack that he had, that gentleman. I'm sorry, I can't even remember his name right now.
Kamori Harris.
Kamori Harris. He was a stud. He was a man among boys, to be quite honest with you. So I wonder about that. Piedmont, I think that's a helmet pick. They struggled some last year, got into the playoffs. But, I think that goes back to where it's Piedmont. And again, I haven't kept up with who's left, how many people they got returning, starters, things like that. So, again, it's just kind of a crapshoot at this time of the year, especially when you start talking 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah. JJ, B.B. Comer, like 5, moving up, because we remember Comer just 2 years ago was playing in a state championship game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm with Greg. You know, you lose Kamori Harris, that's a big part of that team. And you know, the questions. I think it's impossible to even get this close, and here's why: the coverage. You know, sports coverage, high school sports coverage. Unless you're in Birmingham area, unless you're in Mobile, maybe in those metropolitan areas, you get very little cut. You don't get the coverage you get you know, where we're from, Sand Mountain teams. And I think Greg mentioned it and he called it a helmet pick. I think a lot of times you're just picking a helmet just based off Piedmont's been in the championship game. What you have to know is you have to know how many seniors did they lose? You know, how many returning starters are there? Uh, did they lose a coach? You know, how much of their coaching staff, because it really all matters. Those things in smaller classifications really matter.
Yeah.
To Greg's point, you lose one player if you're BB Comer, and he's a heck of a player. It makes all the difference in the world. I think Mars Hill's a helmet pick as well. Not saying they don't deserve any of these deserve to be there. You're just guessing. You know, these guys, our friends there at Howtech, they may have inside information that may have been how they constructed that, but it's, to me, extremely difficult to even speculate.
Yeah.
At least the three teams that you mentioned there.
One of the things that I got to ask before we move on to the obvious teams that we'll look at in a moment, Piedmont being at 10, and JJ, you mentioned losing. Did they lose a coach? That was the question you asked. Well, of course, it hasn't been from the 2023 season. It was the 2022 season. Piedmont did lose Steve Smith to Westbrook Christian. And then, as you both said, Piedmont did struggle, but they found their way into the playoffs. They began to look a little bit more like towards the end of the season, like the Piedmont everybody has come to know and to some degree fear and respect. Did Steve Smith leaving Piedmont, is that what kind of moves the chains there a little bit, if you will, to kind of knock them down? And basically what I'm asking is, do you think if Steve Smith were still there that they would get a little more respect and moved higher up in these early top 10s?
Could very well be. Again, it goes back to the same thing. You know, Steve Smith had been there for a long time, obviously built a great program. Did he leave because it was time? You know, he needed to get out of there. Things starting to get stale. You know, these coaches, they know what's coming up too. Is it time to go? Because you know what? In these little classifications, I've got a 2 or 3 year stretch right here where I don't have as many athletes coming. This is a great time for me to go somewhere else.
Right.
So again, it gets back to what like JJ's talking about. I don't know the information, but anytime you lose a coach like Steve Smith, it's going to be a hiccup in your program. And actually, it's usually 2 or 3 years down. You kind of sustain, in my opinion, that first year, you're kind of okay because you're still going with that culture that he's built. Then 2 and 3 years down is where it seems to me like you're going to probably struggle, maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah. Let's get inside the top 5 here. Speaking of losing a coach, we talked about Geraldine at 1, Sylvania at 3, FYFFE at 4, and that's kind of where we'll stay for a moment here. The Sylvania Rams lost Tyler Van to the Scottsboro Wildcats and have brought in a coach that, no disrespect, has no head coaching experience to my knowledge. And I may be totally wrong on that, willing to be wrong, but he came from Collinsville under the tutelage of one of the greats in high school football sports, and that is Coach Ernie Willingham. Great gentleman, wonderful man. I always enjoy hearing what he has to say at media day and stuff, and guided Collinsville to their best season they ever had, ironically, in their 100th season of football, which was spectacular. They were one game away from making a state championship bid, and unfortunately they won't talk about it too much because the team that stood in their way, I'm wearing their logo on my hat tonight, although this is the baseball F. But Sylvania lost a coach who, for the last 4 or 5 years, has really put Sylvania back on the map, and yet they're sitting ahead of FYFFE at 3 and FYFFE at 4. Tell me, it's more or less a guess than anything, but tell me what you guys might think the logic there is.
I got no clue.
I think part of it is, again, they think Fife's moving up a class, so it's going to be tougher. But they
Yeah.
need to go back a few years ago when Fife moved up to 3A and beat Piedmont in that semifinal game, and then had a great comeback win against Montgomery Academy. I know Montgomery Catholic. So again, moving up to 3A, it's not anything that's foreign to at least the coaching staff. So but I honestly think that's a lot of it. You're moving up because again, with the starters at Fife's coming back, it's hard not to put them. And I'm okay with fourth. I mean, that's a semifinal round, but still, with everybody they got coming back, I just think they got them there because of the move up in classifications.
Yeah. I think that plays a lot. That has a lot to do with it if you're looking at it from the outside. If you start looking at the scores, Geraldine and Sylvania's been a part of the 5 schedule for years. And if I know Geraldine's done a good job, probably done the best job against 5 that any team, period, has done, at least over the years. I've been keeping up with 5 football. That first game of the season or second, was that first game?
First game.
It all runs together. First game of the season, they looked pretty good. They tailed off a little bit, but then they picked it back up. Geraldine made a run there. But Sylvania saved 3 years ago. Sylvania's that game's not been that close. Even last year's game. I mean, it could, you see how they could score, and there's a potential there that they could put points on Fife and everything and move the football, but the game really wasn't that close, and neither was it the year before.
Well,
in my opinion,
I will say this to kind of somewhat disagree with you on that Fife Sylvania game, in that it was 2021 that Fife did everything they could to give that game away to Sylvania, and they still ended up winning. I don't know
that
how.
game.
I don't know how. And then last
year,
Thursday night game, that whole night just felt weird, and it didn't feel weird in the same vein as the 2021 game, where you knew exactly what was going wrong because it was so blatantly obvious, and nothing just felt like we could do things right in 2021. This past season, I don't know. The storylines of Anderson versus Anderson going in their family against family and that kind of thing, and kids just try not to get hurt. They moved the game up to get an extra day's rest for the playoffs that next week. And they had, by the way, remember, they had agreed to that like 5 weeks before the game was going to even be played. We were told that by Coach Benefield that it's likely going to happen. So it just, I don't know. That game just felt weird. I don't know. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, I will say that, I think Drew said it the other night when we were on our way to the game. That didn't Sylvania lose 16 seniors? It's like a ridiculous amount
of big class.
Big. They lost a big class. They lost their head coach. So it's a stretch for me, and that's not knocking Sylvania at all, really. But it's a stretch if I'm looking at trying to rank these teams. It's a stretch for me to put them at number 3.
And you come in, like you say, you come in with a new coach, and so we don't know. I mean, is he going to stay with the same offense? He's got his own ideas, I'm sure. The continuity between that. It's not like they promoted somebody from the staff that's probably going to keep everything the same.
Right.
Do they run Collinsville's offense? What kind of defense? Losing those players, again, even though it's 3A, and if that's 16 seniors, I don't know how many of them are starters, but I believe it was quite a few. Yeah, that's hard to recover from. And again, I'm like you, JJ. I'm not knocking Sylvania, and they may beat our eyes out, but it's just hard to believe.
What about Geraldine sitting there at number 1? Now, before you guys answer this, let me give you. So on Twitter, Hall Tech Sports replied to our reposting of it just mere moments after it was reposted, retweeted, whatever the case is, and quote, I'm just gonna read for the folks what they said. They said, "Trust me, Fife means business. I believe they will come for the top spot, and we'll have to see Geraldine along the way." Well, that last part is obvious there because they're in the same region. They have to go through each other this year.
No
As
doubt.
to the last couple of years, it's been coach's choice, and of course, it makes all the sense in the world to play each other in non-region. To finish out the quote, all signs point to the ASWA to vote Geraldine that number 1 spot. They earned it, TBH, or to be honest. And I'm sure it's a first time type of thing for the Bulldogs as well. I remind you, gentlemen, that they are losing a lot of seniors in their own right, including guys like Carlos Mann, Jackson Colvin, and Jace Cook. And Carlos Mann was even listed as an athlete, and these guys were all state players awarded. They do return Joe Garcia, defensive lineman. He's a junior. He'll be a senior. He was voted second team all-state player, but guys like Colvin, Carlos Mann, those are guys that we've been hearing about for a number of years now, even dating back to their late years, 5th and 6th grade playing Pee-wee ball, and that they could, quote-unquote, be special at some point, like what we talk about Fife kids. Geraldine's losing a lot, like what you mentioned a moment ago, JJ, in Sylvania losing. So is that number 1 spot justified?
I know we probably will have Geraldine people listening, but no, not when you lose that much. You lose your best offensive player. You lose your quarterback. Now Michael Davis, heck of a coach. So you lose. Not in addition to that, they lose probably their best tackler on the team, and Kobe Hill, as to graduation. And so let's just be honest. These rankings don't mean jack squat.
No,
they don't mean jack squat, because it always, with football, it always plays out. So, hey, who cares? Who cares? Yeah, Geraldine. Put Geraldine up there, because, in my opinion, if I'm the coach, it's rat poison, to quote a famous coach in his own right. It's a retiree now who says it's rat poison. And if I'm a coach, I don't want that. I don't want my team ranked. I want my team to focus on what they need to do to win football games and win every game on that schedule. And that the rest of it should take care of itself.
Yeah,
I don't see it. Of course we're biased, but I don't see that. I don't see either one of those teams, those local teams, being in the top 5. Now, I may be dead wrong. We may be losing both games to them. So, but these things don't mean anything.
And
they really don't.
To go with JJ, they don't mean anything. And what's even scarier, I guess, about this one's probably more accurate than what you're going to see later on down the road from the Sports Writers Association, because they go strictly by last year. Man, they don't look at anything. They don't care.
Right.
Fife, they're so bad. Fife may be number 1 in 2A. They may not even realize we moved up. That's how bad those things usually are.
Yeah. So I will say this: they unless it's Birmingham area, they don't know jack squat.
Greg, I do think you're right in saying that it may be scarier. I thought that the ASWA may get this a lot more inaccurate than what anybody else's too early top 10 is, but I would dare throw in there sort of like what both of you have alluded to, in that Geraldine ended up they did not look their best at all in that 5 game to start the season last year. Then all of a sudden you're talking about a semifinal appearance where they're one of 4 teams left in the state and the only public school left in the state in 3A, mind you, still playing football in the last weekend of November.
Oh, here we go.
I'll say it like this. I'm not going
it's
that route.
So unfair.
I'm not going that route. I'll say this. That game now goes from week 1 last year and a non-region week 1 game to right now at the time of recording, and this could change if folks haven't been keeping up. This could very well change, but right now it is the last game, a week 9 game on the schedule for Fife near the end of October. That's a complete 180 on the scale, on the spectrum. We don't get Geraldine to start and them and both teams still trying to figure out who they are. We get a game where both teams by that point should know who they are, should have their identity. And we were talking about it when the schedule first came out. What a heck of a ball game to end on if that is indeed the final game. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll say I agree with Hall Tech that it will, and it will, like all things, it will work itself out.
Yeah.
And the rankings do not matter.
Let me throw this in here. Both Geraldine and Sylvania were within a hair of playing for playing for a state championship.
Yeah.
I mean, or playing each other. They both had the games that they lost. Both of them were tight ball games,
Yep.
and it could have went their way very easily. So I get that. They deserve that nod this year based on their performance last year, because both of those teams were really, really good
Yeah.
football teams, as we found out.
College football Super League. Is it coming? And what do we expect to see out of it? Pros, cons, that kind of thing. Right now, it's hard for me to see any kind of pros coming out of a college football Super League. Reports are being circulated all over social media and have been for especially the last year and a half, ever since Texas and Oklahoma decided they wanted to join the SEC, and then all of a sudden USC and UCLA decides to jump ship of the Pac-12 and join the Big Ten, and then all of a sudden the Pac-12 becomes virtually non-existent after the baseball and softball seasons wrap up. Put simply, we won't stay too long on this because I do want to get the other guys' opinions on here whenever they decide that they can join us again. But guys, is a college football Super League coming, i.e. whether it keeps the name of the SEC or do they change it up? I mean, you guys have been seeing the same stuff I have. Just kind of give me your roundabout thoughts on this.
It's a done deal. I mean, as soon
Really?
as you get Florida State or Clemson wins their suit against the ACC will dissolve just like the Pac-12 did, and it's going to be the SEC and the Big Ten. Because honestly, I mean, if you go back and you look at the Big 12 right now, there's nobody in there anymore. They've got, Central Florida, SMU. I mean, they're good teams, but they're not true Power 5 teams. And it's going to be just like the NFL. I mean, everything's happening that way. You've got the transfer portals, just like free agency, except less restricted. Now we've got 2-minute warnings and helmet communication. And I think it's going to be, two super leagues. It'll be like the AFC, the NFC. You'll have 16 teams in a playoff on each side because, it's all about money now, which there's nothing wrong. I mean, we're a capitalist nation, but that's the playing for the love of the sport at that level is almost all but gone. You still got to love it. But still, at that point in time, you're worried about building your brand. You're worried about NIL. Yeah, toss it. 86. And that's my opinion. Like I said, it's just a matter of time. That TV money, TV revenues, like I said, and Clemson and Florida State, that lawsuit, they're going to win at some point in time.
Who doesn't win a lawsuit against the NCAA or the ACC nowadays? Who doesn't win?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be done.
Yeah.
Well, they also just, JJ, they just, in fact, the day of recording this on Monday, I got a notification from the ESPN app that the NCAA, it got sent to the Central Board last weekend, and it was approved on Monday morning. The immediate eligibility of transfers if they meet academic standards. Basically, it is now we've called it the Wild Wild West. Heck, in Alabama, we call the South in high school football the Wild Wild West. College football is now immediately, due to this new rule change, where all you got to do is meet an academic standard. Who's to set the academic standard, first of all? Who sets that? Is it by university? Because every university is going to be different, I'm sure, just to meet certain standards, especially ones that have powerful football programs, shall we say, including ones that we root for. They just approved this, and now NIL is not NIL, not really. The transfer portal, the immediate eligibility, all of this is, in my opinion, chaos.
It is, and I'm with Greg. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen. It needs to happen. I'll go as far as to say it, because it is anarchy in college sports right now. And the NCAA is second to the federal government. They're the most inept organization on the face of God's green earth. They're busy worried about stupid things that don't even matter, trying to look like they're doing something. This needs organization. It needs some guardrails. It needs structure, and they can't provide any of that.
Yeah.
And so it needs to happen. Now, look, I'm traditionalist. I love the bowl games. And I think we've already talked about that at one point, having that New Year's Day circled, and I'm going to watch football from lunch all the way till midnight or whatever the case may be, and I'm watching football. I love the pageantry of the bowls and some of that stuff. But look, it's gone. They've destroyed that. There's nothing. These kids don't want to play in bowl games. Heck, they'll sit out, because they're like Greg said, they're worried about their brand and worried about getting ready for the draft. Even if they don't have a snowball's chance in Hades of getting drafted.
Yeah.
Like we've got, so it needs to happen. There's going to be carnage left behind. It's just like with you in your nursery. It became, I'm going to relate it. All right. So everything was status quo. It wasn't what you wanted, but everything was okay. And what did you have to do to go in there and to get, when you look at the finished product, what have you had to do to get there?
Yeah.
You had to make a mess.
Yeah.
You had to make a mess. You had to tear some things out that have been there forever. And so that's exactly what's got to happen. There's got to be some leadership. I don't know. I think Greg Sankey, I think the Big Ten, those guys have managed their leagues well. Who better? But the NCAA's got to go. They're a bunch of clowns, every one of them. Another organization in state.
So you said, yeah, one with 5 letters as their initials.
Mm-hmm.
I'll stick with you, JJ, because you said you think it's got to happen. What would be a pro of this then? We've kind of sort of skirted around the cons of it and the things that kind of bad that come out of it. But what would be a pro of this happening, since you feel that it has to happen this way?
Well, the pro is that you're actually going to have some structure where these kids can't be. There's got to be contracts. They can't be jumping around. Players change teams a lot in the NFL. They do. They change teams. It's not the way it used to be, but it's not every year. So you're going to get a little bit more consistency, a little bit more of an organization where you can manage the funding, and it's the team that has the most money is going to be the one that has all the players. You got to put a salary cap on it. Those things need to happen. And, then, heck, I'd love to see a 16-team playoff on both sides of that equation, like Greg said, and see what happens. I think you'll see a lot of good football games, a lot of good matchups. It's pro football now. It's pro. Yeah. It's not college. It's pro football. There's nothing that any of us, even though there's nothing any of us could do, accept it. I think the pro is going to be there to be more football on TV, better football on TV. I wished it stayed the way it was, but it's not that way. And so the structure needs to happen, and the salary cap or the cap on resources needs to happen as well. But they'll still be they'll be doing what they've done for years. They'll be buying little Eric a Trans Am and his mama a double wide, if that's what they want, in addition to circumvent the cap.
Yeah. Greg, I'll ask you, do you agree with JJ that it has to happen?
Yeah, I don't think there's any other way around it right now, because now it's even, they thought they were going to divide this up and make it more equitable, I guess, but it's even worse now with the haves and the have-nots. You're going to see teams with the transfer portal, I guess, and especially with basketball where it's not as many players, but now you've got teams, I heard today listening to somebody that Texas has 9 billionaire boosters. Yeah. Whew. So, it's just a bidding war right now. So if you don't control it, like JJ's talking about, the haves are going to go way above the have-nots. And this 8-team or 12-team that we got, it's going to be pretty much the same 12 teams every year. Yeah. It's the ones with the money.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole with this next part that I'm going to bring up, but we're talking about it in the vein of football only. But if this happens, it may start football only, but this will become quickly a all sport phenomenon where every sport at all these universities that they offer will eventually have to fall into this super league category, whether you join whatever it may be, the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever they end up calling themselves at that point, because you're pulling schools from across the country. Not only will it involve all those sports, but like what USC and UCLA are doing right now, they're having to travel cross country.
Yeah.
And and maybe not, maybe it doesn't affect football so much because they play on Saturday and they get Sunday to fly back and have an off day or whatever. But you're talking about other sports in baseball, softball, basketball that play middle of the week games that have to be back that next morning for possibly an exam in their class, and you're having to go through all the the bull crap of, well, this player needs an extension or needs to be dismissed and allowed to make up this exam because he had to fly on a flight back at 1 a.m. from going from LA to Boston to play Boston College. I mean, come on, going to Ohio to play the Buckeyes. I mean, again, we can get into that rabbit hole, and I don't want to do that.
Like you said, it's happening this year. I mean, this next calendar year, you've got Stanford women's tennis will be playing in Miami, Florida. You know, I mean, this ACC taking those teams, the Big Ten taking USC, UCLA, Oregon. I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, Adam. You've got these other little, secondary sports. I hate to say that, but it is. That's going to be. It's just crazy. I mean, you're talking about some road trips from. It's almost going to have to do like they do in the NFL when they're going overseas to Europe and they're letting them play 2 games now. That's almost what they're going to have to do. If you've got a road trip to, like you're saying, Oregon's got to go play Boston College or Rutgers or whoever, they're going to have to schedule 2 or 3 for that week and then let them come back.
But see, that's part of the problem. And you don't, I don't even know if you realize you did it. They're being, those sports, whether it's tennis, softball, men's rowing, whatever, those sports are being thought of as non-revenue producing, and that's what makes it easier for these decisions to be made. Instead of thinking about every sport having student athletes, JJ, instead of thinking of the student athletes themselves, they're just looking at, is it revenue producing versus non-revenue producing?
Well, it's the way of the world. I mean, it's about dollars. It's about dollars. It becomes more important. The dollars become more important than the people. And that's just how it is. That's going to cause some of those sports to get cut. They're going to cut those sports. That's what's going to happen. They're going to cut them.
I have heard talk about that or the new Super League just being football only, or maybe football, basketball, and then there being other, associations under that. Now, again, that's just people talking. That I obviously have about as big of an idea that could happen as much as we do, the 3 of us do. So, I'm not sure how much they actually know, but I have heard them talk about that in the past too, that this would be a football only or a football basketball.
That would probably be the best thing to happen. And in that way, they could maintain their leagues. They could maintain their conferences within all the other sports, but I don't know. It's a mess, and the NCAA has done nothing but make it worse. And so a lot of things going to get awful dusty and dirty, Adam, before it looks better.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Well, let's get back to a little happier topic, if you will, something that is very much in Greg's wheelhouse here as we move on to the Caesars Sportsbook 2025 Championship odds here. And again, I want to say this right off the bat. I do not partake in gambling. I don't do it. Personal choice. I don't believe we're supposed to gamble. That's just me.
His interpreter does. His interpreter gambles for him.
I do need an interpreter sometimes. Yep. But no. I don't do it. But I know folks do, and this is, after all, supposed to be an entertaining program. So we're going to try and make a little entertainment out of it. Again, Caesars Sportsbook, one of the top, if not the top sportsbook in all of Vegas odds, came out just a week or so ago with their college football 2025 championship odds. And I sent you guys over the list. I put some in the rundown and then sent you the entire thing that I got. I want to give you the rundown. First of all, I included Notre Dame in this for a certain someone who's not here with us. But I'll give you the top 6 or 7 or so. The Georgia Bulldogs checking in at number 1, the best odds to win the championship at plus 300. Ohio State at plus 400. The Texas Longhorns in third at plus 750. And then it takes a nice nosedive into the Oregon Ducks at number 4 at plus 1,000. And then tied for fifth are LSU and Ole Miss at plus 1,400. Where does Alabama fall? They're not in that top 5 or 6. No, they're not. They're at number 7 at plus 1,600. You go down to a tie for ninth. JB's Notre Dame Fighting Irish at plus 2,200. They're tied with Clemson and Penn State. Auburn, for you Auburn fans, they are tied for 24th at plus 10,000 odds. Tied with Nebraska, Oklahoma, SMU, and Washington, a team that was just in the college football playoff national championship, lost their coach to Alabama, and the Washington Huskies are now tied for 24th at plus 10,000 on the odds scale. Just on that quick lineup there and looking down the other rundown, what do you guys make of this? Do you agree with the Caesar Sportsbook, Greg? Since this is sort of your deal, I'll ask you first. Do you see their reasoning behind thinking Georgia, Ohio State, Texas, and Oregon as top 4?
Well, obviously Georgia. I mean, who can argue with that? They were one of the best teams last year, although they didn't get into the playoffs. A lot of returners. They're the new Alabama, quote unquote. So I got no trouble with that. You bet on them, you're losing money before it's over with anyway. So you might as well just go ahead and pick somebody else if you're going to try to win. Ohio State, hey, they were very active in the transfer portal, so that's where that's coming from. But tell me a big game that Ryan Day's won, and we'll talk about whether they can win the national championship or not. Heck, he may still lose to Michigan again this year. So he's one that could be on the hot seat. Texas, number 3. Hey, we just talked about their 9 billionaires. I'm good with that. There's no problem there. 4th, Oregon. Little confused about Oregon losing the starting quarterback, going into a new, much tougher league. That was kind of a stretch for me. And then where in the world you pull LSU and Ole Miss in there, man, that one's really got me right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't – and let's call it what it is too. If Saban was at Alabama, they'd be number 2 probably, maybe number 3.
Mm-hmm.
Saban's gone, new coach. We're down at 7. Got all the talent in the world, but that's just it. They plus the Alabama hate. They don't want Alabama. Let's admit that too. They don't want to see Alabama there. So
right.
But yeah, I mean, the ones that really get me, like I said, is LSU and Ole Miss. LSU again losing a top. What's he going to be? A top 10 pick in the draft coming up.
Top
quarterback.
Top 3.
Yeah, top 3 probably. So again, you do that, and again coming off just a mediocre season at best. They're just sometimes I think they're just throwing darts. Although I will say, those boys out in Vegas, they get so much stuff right, it makes you wonder sometimes.
Yeah,
it does.
JJ, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I never looked at the sports book, but you always have the preseason rankings and all that, and it's like we talked about earlier with high school football. Sometimes, powerhouses get the benefit of a doubt. So I see that with Georgia. I think it's rightfully so. Ohio State, I think they get the benefit of a doubt more so than other teams. I don't know why, because like Greg said, Ryan Day has not proved that he can win a big game yet. Texas, I completely buy that because they have billionaires on their side, but they're loaded. Their backup quarterback is probably 10 times better than most team starters, in Arch Manning. But I'm a little puzzled by Oregon, just like Greg was.
Yeah.
I think Alabama. I think that's a pretty good place for Alabama, to be honest with you. The unknown with Kalen DeBoer taking over. But to be honest with you, this transfer portal, all the things that are happening, how do you pick? How do you know? I like Auburn's placement. I think that's probably a little optimistic for them. I'm trying to be funny, but I mean, I see that on this list, it's odd, some of the teams on here. We've got James Madison, which is, by the way, is a good football team. I think this will be their second year in division, the FBS.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, very last on that list, the Massachusetts Minutemen. That's. I mean, I don't even know why you waste your time putting them in this list.
What's the odds on them? I don't have it in front of me.
Million.
It's got a lot of zeros. Let me see. Yeah, it's a million plus a million. So yeah, it's a crapshoot.
Without
No
looking,
pun intended.
without looking, can you tell me who the SEC team that falls last in the worst
It had
odds
to be
win that?
Vanderbilt.
That's
Have to
exactly.
be Vandy.
Yeah.
It is the
God,
Vanderbilt
Vanderbilt.
Commodores. They are not far from being last. They are plus 500,000.
Hey, so
Wow.
look at Vanderbilt. I was listening. They were talking about Texas and the new SEC schedule. Some of the games that were going to be big on Texas
Yeah.
radar, and they play freaking at Vanderbilt. Now, how about if you're Vanderbilt? It's like, okay, it wasn't bad enough to get beat by the teams that we get beat by every year, but we're going to throw in a couple more to get a conference.
Yeah.
So go ahead, JJ.
Ivy
But I got a
League.
question to ask you about that.
They need to be Ivy League. They need to be in the Ivy League or something. Vanderbilt does.
They only listen. Before you go, Greg, the only reason the SEC has them is to keep up the GPA of the conference. Go ahead, Greg.
No, and to win bowling championships too. I mean, they've got a couple bowling championships. So
Hey, Jacksonville State women won the national championship in bowling. Congrats, JSU Gamecock.
Hey.
Gamecocks.
JJ, I was going to ask the same thing. We were listening to the same thing, obviously. So, do they take it over? Is it going to be Texas East when they come up there? Because they're going to go to Nashville.
No, it will.
Like
no,
it is?
absolutely. It's a draw, because people go, "Hey, we'll come up for the ball game, and then we're going to stay the weekend and
see nothing but burnt orange in that stadium.
Go down Broadway, or whatever." But yeah, it'll be just like when Alabama plays there. I mean, they fill up the stadium. So, I mean, I guess that's good for the ticket for the box office.
Yeah,
for
Vanderbilt,
Vanderbilt,
get the money one way or the other,
because they're not going to get people from Nashville to show up enough, But
I'm going to say, why do you think they're adding more seats to the stadium at Vanderbilt so they can sell more to the opposing team?
Yeah. That's
no, you're right.
The visiting team's been complaining about the ticket allotment.
Yeah.
There is one team that kind of strikes me on the odds here, and I noticed this immediately, and I tried to find others that just stuck out, but this one, man, the Arkansas Razorbacks are at plus 50,000. There is one team that I was shocked to see above them with better odds, and that is the team right above them on your list in the University of Texas San Antonio Roadrunners.
The Roadrunners
at plus 40,000. I don't know, and I know this has nothing to do with the Calipari coming to Arkansas thing because that's basketball, but I don't. Like you said, Greg, maybe Vegas knows something we don't. I don't know. Well, they usually do, but
I think that's more of an indictment on Arkansas and the poor state of that program than it is with UTSA. And I love the coach. Everybody loves the coach, but now it's starting to tag. Starting to go down a little bit. And then before he got there, I mean, it was dismal. I mean, they were losing to
it was a mess.
Was it North Texas State?
Yeah,
couldn't cover a punt. Guy stands there like he's fair caught it, and they all just kind of start walking off the field. He scores a touchdown. So they've fallen on some rough times. And when you go back and look at it, I guess once they got out of the what was it? Was it the Big 12? No, Southwest Conference.
Southwest Conference.
Yeah, they haven't really, except for that one year with Petrino. It's not been a great program over there.
But
stay away from motorcycles and co-eds.
Yeah, but guess who's offensive coordinator down there for this next year?
Oh yeah, Mr. Bobby. He's got to though. Did they get him a co-ed? Did they get him a motorcycle?
Oh my God!
I mean, what brought him back? And does anybody believe that he actually had the motorcycle wreck, or that little co-ed's husband got a hold of him? Which one?
I think the co-ed's husband got a hold of it.
Yeah, I think
Hey,
so
he better,
too.
all I gotta say is he better be riding an e-bike. He better go with an e-bike this
Get
time.
him a little scooter.
Yeah, but no. How long? Well, since we're talking about Arkansas, how long is it before Pittman gets fired and
Ah,
Petrino?
if Petrino stabs him in the back,
Yep.
be like working with Phil Fulmer. You know,
Yeah.
you got to watch your back.
Hey,
Oh,
this
I
is
hope
just
my
a
buddy
side
Daniel
note.
Lawson is not watching this.
But when they
He knows
introduced
it's true.
Calipari, when they introduced Calipari at that press conference and stuff, that Cameron was on Pittman a couple of times. He did not look happy. He did not look happy, and neither did his
Hey,
wife.
I'm going to change it real quick back to Vanderbilt because while we were piling on them, I would like to let everybody know that I was in Bryant-Denny Stadium in 1984 when Vanderbilt came to town and beat the Crimson Tide.
Yeah.
First game that Alabama had lost in Bryant-Denny since like 1957. Homecoming. Oh, it was fantastic. What a fabulous year. That's why I love basketball so much. I watched the swings to Vandy, to Southern Miss. 84 was not a banner year.
No.
No.
Hey, we beat Auburn that year though.
Did we
Wasn't
beat
that
them
the
in
year?
84, 82, 83? Yeah. That would have been
Yeah.
that would have been wrong way Bo. That was wrong way Bo.
Yeah. That made the
McGinty missed the
season.
kick. Oh
That
yeah.
made the season.
We already talked about the guy that hit Fullwood, the black assassin Rory Turner.
I remember it. Well.
Real quick, before we move on to the Where Was Greg t-shirt segment, let's talk quickly. First pick NFL draft. Who you taking? Because this podcast will drop on the day of the first round, and while between here and there, recording and dropping, there's always opportunity to move. I think that if we were going to see some movement, we already would have at this point. The Jets traded earlier on Monday. They traded Zach Wilson over to Denver, and a 6th-round pick, I think, for a conditional 6th-round pick from Denver. So if you guys are up for the number 1 pick, who are you taking?
Well, I'm not taking that. I'm trying to be nice here. The quarterback from USC, the peckerhead from USC. To me, somewhere along the lines, class has got to mean something. And I'm sorry, I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be a GM very long. I'd probably get fired because he'll turn out to be the greatest thing ever. But I would not take him. So next up, quarterback. I don't know who is the next best quarterback. That little man from LSU looked pretty darn good last year, and so did
Jaden
Michael
Daniels.
Penix, and so did Penix from Washington.
But
I couldn't take Williams. I just couldn't.
But Chicago still has that first pick from
Yeah.
Carolina, and they decided to hang on to their quarterback in Justin Fields. So, what happens here?
No, they
I'm not
traded
sure
Justin Fields.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
they traded.
yeah, my fault.
They traded him for a 6th-round draft pick.
That's true. I forgot. I did. My apologies. My brain went.
Here's what I don't understand, and I don't understand. I know there's people that are a lot more knowledgeable of football and everything, but they do screw it up quite often. Those experts,
Especially that number 1 pick.
Yeah, that number 1 pick. How many number 1 picks have really worked out? I'm going to ask. Just think about that for a minute. Number 1 picks that have really worked out. All right.
Quarterback or all positions?
I'm talking about quarterbacks.
Okay.
Number 1 picks. Think about that a minute. All right. They don't work out. That there is a very low percentage chance of getting that right and finding your franchise quarterback. The other thing is with Caleb Williams, I have no clue where all this hype has come from. Because yes, he looked great. He won a Heisman Trophy, but he played on an average team both years. Average team. If you're that generational talent that they're talking about, and that's what they're talking about. Been talking about it since he was at Oklahoma. All right, why can't you lift your team? If quarterback is a position, Why wasn't your team able to be in the national championship race? Why are you losing what did they lose, 4 games last year?
I think 4
Yeah.
this last year.
Yeah. So I don't buy it. I don't buy it, not one bit. I don't buy this kid, aside from his antics and his painted fingernails and he's wearing the skirts and whatever, all that other garbage he does. Aside from that, I don't even care about that. Because if he can throw touchdowns and lead the team, I'm fine with it. But I just don't buy it. He's not that good. He didn't set the world on fire into college, even though he was very good. And he's going to be playing against grown men that don't have time for some of that crap.
Yeah.
And we talked about this. The NFL, any of these leagues, if you cross them, you'll find yourself out of a job.
Oh, yeah.
And you won't have no place to go. So I don't know. He's going to get picked. The Bears track record, you took a number 1 guy that you thought would be great in Fields, and you just traded him away for a 6th-round draft choice. So I don't think they're a good spot to develop a quarterback anyway.
Well,
JJ, you were talking about. I'm sorry. You were talking about him playing against guys that have no time for that. Even more important, he's going to be playing with guys that have no time for those kind of addicts.
So I think we're all in agreement. Caleb Williams, don't go that route. So if you don't go Caleb Williams at the number 1 overall pick, a few of the other quarterbacks, Drake May out of North Carolina, Jaden Daniels out of LSU, JJ McCarthy out of Michigan. I've not been sold on him either. Bo Nix out of Oregon, who really salvaged his career with the Oregon Ducks after leaving Auburn, which ended up, in my opinion, being the best thing in the world for Bo Nix to do. Michael Penix Jr. out of Washington. You got Spencer Rattler out of South Carolina, Michael Pratt out of Tulane, Jordan Travis from Florida State, and Joe Milton out of Tennessee. That rounds out the other 9 QBs that are projected to go in the draft at some point. I don't have a draft grade in front of me, but who do you go with if you're going quarterback number 1 and you're the Bears, which many assume they're doing, because to my knowledge they don't have a guy on that roster that they could look at and say this is the guy face of the franchise for the next 8-10 years. So who would you go if you're not going Caleb Williams?
I'm spending here's what I'm doing. I'm spending my draft picks on offensive lines, defensive line, and then I'm going in the late rounds to pick up one of those quarterbacks, whether it's Joe Milton or it's a kid from Tulane or whatever. I'm not wasting all that on a quarterback, because you guys know as well as anybody, it doesn't matter how good you are, when you're running for your freaking life every snap, then you're not going to look that good. And so I'm investing in my offensive line. If I feel good about my offensive line, then great. But I'm investing in the offensive line, and I'll just go ahead and say this: I'm picking up a veteran quarterback that he can set behind whoever I draft in the later rounds, that he can set behind and learn from. And I know one that plays in the league we went.
I was about to say,
hey, AJ McCarron, are you telling me all these smart people? Are you telling me that guy don't deserve to be on a roster and actually get playing time? I think he does, but that's never going to happen. I'm just not wasting those picks. Don't turn out. You got to pay them more. I'm looking for Brock Purdy. I'm not looking for that kid. I'm looking for Brock Purdy.
Greg, who you taking?
Well, unfortunately, I'm a GM trying to keep my job, so I'm probably going with the LSU quarterback.
Jaden Daniels?
Probably going with Jaden
Daniels. I'm going to get fired.
Yeah, well, if you don't,
but
that's the bad thing.
I got a nice buyout though, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, if you've got somebody, if you're a GM maybe established or got an owner that's going to understand, the way that San Francisco's built their team, that's the way to do it. But unfortunately, this day and age, it's you have to win now. And if you pass on that, have a crappy season, that GM's gone looking for a job. I don't know if they get the same kind of severance a coach does, because again, if I'm a coach, fire me. Go right ahead. Give me 20 million.
Yeah.
Show me to the door. I'm Ed Orgeron.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
tell me which door to leave. Tell me which door to go out of. And I'm
Well,
good with it.
and we all know too. There's more to it than just football and just winning football games.
Yeah.
They want the brand, they want the marketing, they want everything that comes with it. And Caleb Williams has been the talk of college football, and
Oh
been
yeah,
the
he's going to
talk
be
after
Edge.
that. So they're going to go that route, whether he's going to be your franchise or not. And I dare say that he is going to be a BUST. And for those of you that can't spell and can't read, that's a bust. That's a bust.
Busted.
Capitalize
Have y'all seen the movie?
every letter and put about 4 exclamation marks after them too.
Yeah.
Have y'all ever seen the movie Draft Day?
Yep.
Yes, it's fantastic.
Actually, not a. Yeah, I was gonna say actually a pretty good movie, and I think if more people were kind of like they were portraying Costner as, you would probably have better teams. But again, it's more like the guy from Washington or wherever he was. You got to get that number one. You got to get that guy.
Seattle.
You got your own bragging rights. Seattle. Yeah, you got to save the franchise and be smarter than everybody else.
Here's the question. Did they show up for his birthday party? and if I trade, am I gonna get David Pudney? That's all I want to know.
Because we need a returner. But I'm saying
because I can feel like it.
Yeah. You pancake eating
right.
son of a gun. I believe. I don't think they went to Caleb Williams' birthday party. That's all I'm going to say. I don't think his teammates went.
Yeah.
Hey, let me just tell you one reason why that's one of my favorite movies, and it may sound like an odd reason, but it's actually one of my favorite movies. Even though it's not a top 5 sports movie, it's one of my favorites because it has one of my all-time favorite actors in it, and he only plays a small role in Superman or Clark Kent. He doesn't like to be saying he was Superman. He was Clark Kent. Tom Welling from Smallville was the quarterback of the Browns, and he's the one that the first time you really see him, he pitches a fit.
Yeah.
He's demanding to be traded. If you're going to pick a quarterback, even though I've busted my butt to come back from injury, man, I love Tom Welling. I'm a Smallville nerd.
Well,
I love it.
I'm going to tell you one of my favorite reasons to like that movie is Jennifer Gardner. That's what.
Roll Tide, everybody.
Roll Tide.
Roll Tide on that. Yeah, I agree. I'm in agreement. So
she wanted Putney. She's the one that wanted Putney.
She wanted David. She did want David.
He hit the mute button on the phone, on the speaker phone, and said, "What else do we need?" And she snapped her fingers and said, "Putney, get Putney."
If you look closely at that film, she was actually saying G Money, but it sounded like Putney, so they got him instead.
Moving along.
It'll be fun. Hey, and the other thing with the draft, the draft itself has become a huge entertainment event. So they're going to pick.
Yeah.
It's more than making your team better. It's more than just the sport itself. It's buzz. I get eyes on the had i.e. Taylor Swift. It's more than that. So
you had to invoke her name, didn't you?
It is. So,
Adam, but say what you said today when we were getting at Snow Cone, because I never thought about it, but your thought process and what you said about this draft is exactly right.
Well,
you remember what you said?
I do, because I honestly, and maybe it's just I haven't had my eyes open. Maybe I haven't watched as much as I normally. I don't know, but I have not seen this draft publicized near as much, whether it be on TV, on social media, whatever. I have not seen it advertised near as much. I forgot, folks, to be perfectly honest. It's not in our prep notes, as a matter of fact, because on the day of typing up prep notes, I totally forgot that the NFL draft was this week. Totally forgot. And then on my ride home Monday, thinking about, okay, we got to get this all set up and yada, yada, yada. I still didn't see anything, but in my brain, all of a sudden I went, hey, the first round of the draft is Thursday night. And the only reason I even vaguely remembered that was because Friday night or Saturday, I had seen like this 15-second, 30-second reel on Facebook between Marshall Mathers and Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner. For those who do not know, Marshall Mathers is the name of the rapper otherwise known as Eminem. And they did this quick little bit. where Roger Goodell made himself sound stupid, where he was like, it's draft night in the Big D. And Eminem looks at him like, you could just say Detroit. You just say Detroit. But honestly, that's the only reason. That is the only reason that I even recalled that the draft is beginning Thursday night. And I know, I'm sure they put it out there, whether it's ESPN or Fox doing whatever they do for their coverage on the radio and whatever else. I'm sure there's been stuff, I haven't seen it, but usually they blow it up. It's everywhere.
For Vegas? Oh my Lord,
Yeah.
Vegas last year.
Yeah,
I mean, but
opening up your ESPN app just to check a score, you can't check the score without first seeing something about the draft, new mock drafts put out, whatever, reminding you that the draft. I haven't seen hardly any of it.
I mean,
I'm
part
a
of
little
it's got to be the
surprised.
city, but I mean, it's got to be something to do with Detroit, I guess. I do know that Vegas has some odds out on people murdered in the crowd. Over under 7 right now, so I wouldn't go to Detroit for it.
No.
Just saying.
No, thanks.
Hold on.
No thanks.
We just took a hard left turn right there, Greg. Thank you. Wow.
Little politics there, not much.
Let's move on and begin the wrap-up process of this show, where we get to the Where Was Greg t-shirt segment. Greg, when I saw you earlier, you were wearing in the when folks tuned in earlier to the cold open, you were wearing a Nashville Preds shirt, which does not qualify for the high school realm. So what you got on now?
Under that Predator shirt, I had the nice little Brasport, Texas Exporters.
That's
a
weird name.
Yeah, only team in the nation, obviously, with the mascot as the Exporters. They are right on the, I don't know what you're going to call it, some type of channelway there outside of Houston. And, of course, big cranes, big cargo ships, they export stuff. So that's how they got the name. They're the Exporters. Nice little, oh my gosh, gorgeous school, gorgeous campus. Stadium set, I think it was around 9,000. They do share it with another team right down the road too. So it's one of those city stadiums. But just again, when you go watch Texas or look at Texas stadiums and what they have, man, it's just a whole different animal. That was one of the ones I got to post. And I think their press box, if I remember correctly, was a modest 4-story press box. Little smaller than some of the other ones out there that I saw. But just a great name. Like I said, the Exporters. I don't know what their anchor is the only thing that I saw. I was hoping they'd have a big crane or something, but the only thing I saw ever was an anchor that they had. I saw again with the cargo ships there, and you could see the cargo ships pretty much from the stadium. So
nice.
I was gonna say, I'm gonna see if I can look them up right. The Brazos Sport Exporters. Let's see. Yeah, it looks like they're ooh, wow. I kind of like these helmets. It looks like their logo is an anchor, a very detailed anchor, kind of like with the devil head horns that we have, a little bit like as the sides of the anchor there. And it's got Exporters written across of it. Now that part almost looks like the old Papa John sign, to be honest. But it's got a rope coming down from the hook and lassoing around. I'd show it, but it's kind of a small picture here on my phone, but it's kind of nice, folks. Look it up.
Hang on, let's see.
The Brazos Sport.
Can you see Exporters.
It there? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, except yours doesn't have the word Exporters across it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, we can see that in your one.
I've been thinking about. Yeah, that's all I got. No testosterone running through this body anymore.
I bet the battle every year between them and the importers is pretty heated.
Yeah. All that excise tax,
Get those unions a raise. Get them a raise.
Oh boy.
Adam, that's a good thing too. I need to start looking at helmets when I go out to these places. I can't see them, but I can look them up because I love some of the. One of the biggest thing, and it was back when it was a Georgia Dome, I loved going and looking at all the helmets from the Georgia high school display they had over there. That was just fantastic.
They got it at the Hall of Fame now.
Dude, that was fantastic.
The Hall of Fame. I've seen it. In fact, I don't say this to brag. It's just because they probably do it with everybody that follows them. The College Football Hall of Fame, I follow them on Twitter. They followed me back within an hour after following them.
Cool.
And if you like something or you retweet something of theirs or whatever, they generally come back and like it. Whomever's running that account will generally come back and acknowledge you in that way that, hey, thanks for sharing our stuff kind of thing. And so, but I'm like you, I liked going over there and seeing that, even though many of the teams I didn't know who they were. It's fascinating to see all these different ideas, unique helmets. Some I like, some I don't. Some I'm like, you could do better. I mean,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Uh, let's move on and put the helmet on this one, if you will, or the cap on it, and talk about what's upcoming at Fife. And I'll get it rolling here with any upcoming junior or seniors we've talked about the last week or two. You are encouraged to take advantage of the ACT Summer Boot Camp. That's going to help prepare you for taking the ACT. Good night. I'm talking conferences still. Classes will be held weekly in July, beginning on July 1st. Registration will open Wednesday, May 1st. By the way, folks, that's next week. May is next week. Let me make sure. Let me. May is next week. In case you didn't get that. May 1st is when registration will open. Limited spots will be available, and forms can be picked up in the high school office. It will be the class will be taught by Miss Durham, and you can find out more by visiting the Fife High School and the Red Devil Radio Show Facebook page. JJ.
All right, so parent student orientation has changed. It's going to be on Wednesday, May the 1st in the new gym from 4:30 to 5:30 for all upcoming 7th, 8th, and 9th graders and those that are entering 7th and 8th grades. Parents need to meet in the lunchroom at 4:30, and they will take a campus tour at 5. Upcoming 9th graders and their parents need to meet at 5 in the lunchroom, and everyone will also be able to view the science fair in the elementary gym from 4:30 to 5:30. And then upcoming senior student parent orientation will be held May the 8th at 5 p.m. in the new gym. The topics discussed will be the seniors' Google Classroom, senior dates and deadlines, graduation requirements, and more. And then there will also be representatives from Northeast Alabama Community College in attendance.
Greg?
All right, seniors at Fife, you've got just a month away before adulthood starts to kick in. Graduation is less than a month, so you just better start making plans now. The graduation for Fife will be held on Monday, May 20th at 6 p.m. at Paul Benefield Stadium. So get ready. I don't know if Fife does tickets, if you've got a ticket allotment like some of the schools do. So
No.
If not, get out there early to get yourself a good seat to see that person that's worked very hard to get where they are.
And of course,
Yeah,
if weather ends up playing a factor, they will move it to the new gym as they have done in the past. So just keep that in mind as well. But that's Monday, May 20th. One other thing before we get out of here, and I don't want this to slip by. It was not on the list, but I'm wearing the hat. Congratulations to the Fife baseball team for their magnificent. I can't even talk to in this thing. Magnificent defeat of Locust Fork in games 1 and 2 of a potentially 3-game series to move on to the second round of the AHSAA playoffs. Your prize, you get Vincent, who's only lost 4 games all year long. But folks, we encourage you to get out and support the Red Devils. They are going to be in action on Friday night. So this drops on Thursday, tomorrow evening, and it's a home game. It's a home 2 games, actually. They'll play 2 games on Friday, game 3 on Saturday if necessary. Get out, support these boys if you can. This is a big deal. And this is one of the best teams in the state of Alabama. I was told the other day that not only are they one of the best teams in 2A, they are like top 5 all across the state. They're just that good. So get out and support them. Coach Brad Thomas, those boys. The ladies are going to get ramped up here before long as well in the AHSAA postseason tournament. I think they're only like a week behind the boys, maybe 2 weeks. I forget, but softball is right there with them. So get out and support the baseball team Friday night if you can. Pay attention, folks. We're going to do the best we can to share all the info with you that you need. And again, best wishes to the boys, and go get them, boys. Go beat Vincent. We'd love you to get into that 3rd round and really make some noise here in the playoffs. Greg, JJ, I've enjoyed it. It's always fun, as always, to get you guys together. Folks may not understand or realize, but when we only have JJ without Greg or Greg without JJ, there's something missing, because you guys are kind of like the glue to this whole thing. What you guys do together, y'all have become, I think, the best of friends on this thing, and y'all bring it. I'm gonna be frank. My wife would not listen to our podcast if it wasn't for the two of you.
JJ, we're the ones that make him nervous, is what it is. He's like,
That's what it is. It's like he's already made note. Got to cut that part about the 2017 Fife basketball team. So
if he had a dump button, that hand would be right over top of it, just hovering the whole time.
Hit that button. Hit the button.
Hey, look, if you want more, it's behind the paywall. That's all I got to say.
And speaking of the paywall, thank you to Froggy Freeze for taking care of us, getting us as our title sponsor. They tried to take care of me, Greg, and Bev earlier, and I wouldn't allow them to take care of us. That just was not going to happen. They support us, so we wanted to go support them. And I tell you what, man, we only got to be there for a few minutes because we're kind of in a rush to get back to be able to do this. But man, I ended up having a very nice time sitting there, just chilling, eating a nice sweet treat, and getting to talk with them a few minutes, getting to learn a little bit about them. Greg, you've known them for years. I'm just now getting to know.
Well, you know, two things. First off, the wanting to take care of us again. That's the kind of people they are. And then talking to him just a second, I did realize that the big guy back there, her son, the 6'4" dude.
Yeah,
I actually knew them before he was born. So I remember he was born in 1980. And I started kind of running around with their brother, Billy, probably around 77, 78. So, yeah, I actually, now that I thought about it, I remember that big man being bored.
Oh, wow. You're old.
And Greg,
I am very old.
Carolyn, she's my, always been she was always one of my favorite teachers.
Yeah, I was going to say, at least I never got taught by her, though. Just saying.
I wouldn't be the man that I am today if it wasn't for Carolyn Johnson.
Still correcting you on your English too, as I understand, even though maybe not to your face or directly to you.
Yeah, for real. Hey, and by the way, I just want to add, I know you talked about the time, like their phone number and contact information. Carolyn does answer the phone after midnight, so preferably, when you call to book a trailer, call them after midnight, and they'll give you a discount. So
just special midnight discount.
Midnight discount.
Well, folks, Froggy Freeze was our title sponsor. No, folks, sincerely give them a call, 256-717-7239. Even though the high school baseball and softball seasons are in their final stages of wrapping up, no matter what happens over the course of the next few weeks. Of course, as you know, Little League Summer Leagues are going on and will be going on throughout the course of the summer. And guess where Froggy Freeze will be? They'll be right there with them, whether it's at Fife or other places, as well as coming out for your family reunions or church function, whatever it is. Give them a call. Again, preferably when the daylight is still shining outside. But if you feel the need to call at midnight, I don't see why they wouldn't take it. 256-717-7239. For JJ and Greg Mears, I'm Adam Ward saying thanks for listening, watching, wherever you may be watching and listening from. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell everyone else you know about this podcast. Let them know we're just some boys talking some sports, and because we love it. We don't pretend to be professionals. We try, but we don't pretend. We are who we are, and we don't apologize for it. May God bless each and every one of you. And as always, go Big Red.
All right, folks. Like I told you, strawberry banana is my thing. That's one of the best ones I've ever had. You what? My wife Beverly? What'd you get again?
I got red velvet cake.
How is it?
It tastes just like red velvet cake.
Just like red velvet cake?
Yes, it's amazing.
And Greg, you got your old classic pina colada.
Pina colada. I'm telling you, it's just like sunshine. Beat sunshine right now.
Man. You can't beat Froggy Freeze, the official sponsor of Five Focus, the podcast, folks. Come on out, get it while you can. Hey, summer's just starting to get around. Yeah. It's starting to feel like it anyway in some places. Get it while the getting's good.